Hey there, my friend. Glad to see you here. Today, I want to talk to you about something that affects everyone, even if we don't always notice it. Envy and lies, they're like poison, sneaking quietly into your life, ruining relationships, and messing up the vibe around you. But you know what? If you learn how to spot the signs early, you can protect yourself and keep your peace of mind. Why should you stick around till the end? Because I'm going to tell you about 13 ways to quickly and easily recognize envy and lies in people. This knowledge will help you avoid falling into the traps of manipulators and jealous folks. And at the end, I'll share an important insight that most people overlook, but it explains a lot. 1. The fake smile. Let's start with something simple but powerful, a fake smile. You've probably seen it before, maybe even today. It's that smile someone flashes at you, but something feels off. It's like their mouth is doing the work, but their eyes didn't get the memo. A real smile isn't just about your lips curving upwards. It's about your whole face lighting up. When you're genuinely happy, your eyes join the party. They crinkle at the corners, your cheeks lift, and there's a warmth that feels real. This is often called a Duchenne smile, named after the French scientist who studied it. But don't worry about the fancy term. Just remember, real smiles reach the eyes. Now, why do people fake smiles? Well, there are lots of reasons. Sometimes people are trying to be polite. They don't want to seem rude, so they put on a quick smile to keep things friendly. That's harmless enough. But when someone's faking a smile to hide something, like envy or dishonesty, that's when it matters. A fake smile can be a mask. It's a quick way to cover up feelings they don't want you to see. Maybe they're jealous of your success, but they don't want to admit it. So, they force a smile, hoping you won't notice what's really going on. Or maybe they're lying about something, and that smile is just part of the act. So, how do you spot a fake smile? 1. The eyes don't lie, look at their eyes. A real smile makes the skin around the eyes crinkle. That's hard to fake. If someone's mouth is smiling but their eyes look cold or blank, that's a red flag. 2. The timing feels off. Fake smiles often appear and disappear too quickly. It's like flipping a switch. Genuine smiles tend to fade naturally, not abruptly. 3. It doesn't match the emotion. Imagine telling someone great news, and they give you a stiff, forced smile. There's no excitement, no real reaction. It feels hollow. That's because their smile isn't connected to any true emotion. 4. The symmetry test. Real smiles are often a bit lopsided because emotions don't hit both sides of the face perfectly. A fake smile might look too perfect, too symmetrical, like it's been rehearsed. 5. The whole face isn't involved. When you're genuinely happy, your eyebrows, cheeks, and even your posture change. A fake smile? Just the lips move. The rest of the face stays frozen. But here's the thing. Don't rush to judge someone just because their smile seems fake. People fake smiles for all kinds of reasons. They might be nervous, shy, or just trying to be polite. What matters is the pattern. If you notice someone consistently giving you that cold, empty smile, especially when you share good news or talk about your achievements, that's when you start to wonder. Why does this matter? Because a fake smile can be a clue. It's like the tip of an iceberg. Beneath it, there could be feelings of envy, resentment, or dishonesty. Spotting that smile is the first step in understanding what's really going on. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever felt that weird vibe from someone's smile? Like they were pretending to be happy for you, but deep down, they weren't? Trust that feeling. Your gut often picks up on things your mind hasn't processed yet. But here's the motivational part. Don't let fake smiles get to you. Someone else's envy or dishonesty doesn't define you. In fact, if people are pretending around you, it often means you're doing something right. You're growing, achieving, and maybe even inspiring emotions in others they don't know how to handle. So, next time you see that fake smile, just smile back, genuinely. Because your realness is your power. The constant comparison, when someone keeps putting you next to others. You know, I've been thinking a lot about something recently, and I've noticed it more and more in my life. There's this thing that some people do without even realizing it, and it can really mess with your head. It's when someone constantly compares you to others, especially pointing out your shortcomings and making sure you feel like you're not measuring up. It's subtle, but it can be a major red flag. And the thing is, it's often a sign of something deeper going on, like envy or insecurity. Let me break it down for you. So, imagine this. You've just accomplished something. Maybe it's a small victory, maybe it's a big one. But instead of celebrating with you, someone says, "Oh, that's cool, but you know, Sarah did it much better." Or, "Well, Alex is always on top of his game. I don't know why you're struggling with that." It's like, suddenly, your success doesn't matter anymore, and it's overshadowed by someone else's achievements. Doesn't that feel weird? This, my friend, is constant comparison in action. It's not just one-off comments or harmless teasing. It's a repeated behavior where someone feels the need to place you next to someone else and show you where you're falling short. And honestly, it's not about them being genuinely concerned or trying to help you improve. It's a way for them to diminish your worth and elevate their own ego. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a difference between constructive criticism and these constant comparisons. Criticism is about helping you grow, about showing you where you can improve. But comparisons? They're all about making you feel like you're not enough. Like no matter how hard you try, there's always someone doing it better, and you'll never catch up. The person who keeps comparing you might act like they're just being honest, but really, they're using you as a way to feel better about themselves. Let me tell you why this happens. A lot of the time, it's because of envy. I know it sounds harsh, but hear me out. When someone is constantly comparing you to others, especially in a way that makes you look bad, it's often because they secretly feel threatened by your successes or accomplishments. Instead of celebrating what you've done, they put you down to make themselves feel better. Envy is an interesting thing. It's not always about wanting exactly what someone else has. Sometimes, it's just about feeling like you don't have enough or that you're not good enough. And when someone keeps comparing you to others, they're trying to make you feel smaller so they can feel bigger. It's like they're using you as a measuring stick to boost their own sense of self-worth. It's messed up, right? Here's the kicker. This behavior isn't just about being mean. It's often rooted in insecurity. Think about it. Someone who constantly needs to compare you to others probably doesn't feel very secure in themselves. They're looking for a way to feel validated, and putting you down is a quick way to get that ego boost. They're thinking, if I can make you feel like you're not doing as well, then maybe I'll feel better about my own situation. But here's the thing, it's all an illusion. It's not real. They might make you feel like you're always falling short, but in reality, that's just their way of dealing with their own feelings of inadequacy. When someone keeps comparing you to others, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their own struggles with self-esteem. Now, how does this affect you? Well, it's draining. It messes with your head. You start questioning yourself. You start thinking, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should be doing more. Maybe I should be more like that person they keep bringing up. And over time, that constant comparison can take a toll on your confidence and self-worth. I've been there, man. It's easy to get caught in the trap of thinking that if you're not measuring up to someone else's standards, then you're failing somehow. But the truth is, everyone's journey is different. Everyone has their own pace, their own path, and their own strengths. Just because someone else does something better doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean you're less than. When you're constantly being compared to someone else, it's important to remember that those comparisons are often based on shallow judgments. They're about external achievements, how much money someone makes, how popular they are, how successful they seem. But those things aren't what define you. Your worth isn't tied to what someone else has or how you stack up against them. You are enough just as you are. So, here's my advice. Don't let those comparisons get to you. When someone keeps bringing up other people in a way that makes you feel like you're lacking, take a step back. Recognize it for what it is, and attempt to undermine your achievements and inflate someone else's ego. You don't need anyone to validate your worth. You know your value. And if someone keeps comparing you to others in a negative way, it's more about their issues than it is about yours. It's not easy to deal with, especially when it comes from someone close to you. But remember, it's okay to stand up for yourself and let them know that you don't need to be compared to others. Your achievements, your progress, and your unique qualities are what make you who you are. And that's something worth celebrating, no matter what anyone else says. I hope that helps you understand it better, man. You're not alone in this, and you've got what it takes to rise above it. Just keep being true to yourself, and don't let anyone diminish your worth by constantly comparing you to others. You're amazing just as you are. Joy from your failures. When someone pretends to care, but they're secretly happy you're struggling. Hey man, I've got something on my mind, and it's been bothering me a bit lately. You know those moments when something goes wrong for you, and someone around you seems to be offering sympathy or support, but you can just tell that they're not really upset for you? In fact, there's this weird, almost invisible glimmer of satisfaction in their eyes. Like, it's not pity they're feeling, it's more like a quiet, secret joy. It's like they're almost happy that you failed. Have you ever had that gut feeling? It's a strange one. Here's the thing, this isn't just a one-off thing. This is the kind of behavior that reveals a lot about someone's true feelings toward you. It's a clear sign of envy or jealousy, and I'm going to tell you why. When someone reacts to your failures with this kind of masked sympathy, it's not because they feel for you. It's because, deep down, they're feeling a twisted sense of relief or satisfaction. It's like your failure somehow validates them. They might act like they're sorry for what happened, but behind that mask, they're secretly enjoying your struggle. It's a gross feeling when you notice it, right? You can feel it in the air, even if they don't say a word about it. Their actions speak louder than any fake words of comfort. I've seen this in my own life before. There's this one person I know who's always the first to act like they care when something bad happens to me, whether it's a work setback, a personal issue, or even just a minor failure. They'll offer the usual, "Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that," and ask all the right questions, but then, there's this little spark in their eyes. It's not a look of concern. It's more like they're watching a drama unfold, and they're getting a kick out of it. It's unsettling. It's not always obvious at first, but once you've experienced it a few times, you start to pick up on it. The way they almost seem too interested in your misfortune, or how they go out of their way to bring it up when you're least expecting it. They might try to make you feel better with their words, but their body language betrays them. You see the satisfaction in their smile, even if it's fleeting. You notice that little glint in their eyes when they talk about how tough things have been for you. And here's where it gets dark. People like that get a strange kind of validation from your failures. They don't want you to succeed because your success would make them feel small. But when something goes wrong for you, they feel like they've won, even if they don't openly express it. It's like they're thinking, "See? I'm not the only one who struggles." They're not perfect either. There's a weird comfort in seeing someone else fail, especially when they've been a source of competition or insecurity for that person. Now, this kind of reaction isn't exclusive to professional life either. It can happen in friendships, relationships, and even within families. Sometimes, when someone's been secretly jealous of you for a long time, your failures provide them with this sick satisfaction that they can't get anywhere else. They feel like they've leveled the playing field, and for them, that's a win. It's so messed up, right? I mean, when you're in the middle of a tough time, the last thing you need is someone taking pleasure in it. We all go through struggles. Life's not a straight path for anyone, but the people who care about you should want to see you rise, not crumble. They should want to help you get through those tough moments, not secretly enjoy them. That's why it's so important to recognize these signs early on. Because when you're going through a rough patch, you don't need people around you who are secretly happy to see you fail. And here's the kicker. These people might not even fully realize what they're doing. Envy has this way of sneaking into our lives and making us act in ways we don't even understand. When someone's been harboring jealousy for so long, they can't even separate their feelings of competition or resentment from genuine care anymore. So when you face a setback, it becomes their chance to secretly feel superior. But even though they try to hide it, their behavior always gives them away. It might be a little too eager follow-up, a smug tone in their voice when they talk about your issue, or even a weird, almost joyful reaction when they see you struggle. They'll say things like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you," but you can tell they don't mean it. It's just words. What's crazy is how they often try to mask this joy with kindness, as if they're the ones offering the most comfort. It's like they're giving you this fake sympathy, but behind it is a sense of, "I told you so." They get a weird power from your misfortune, and for them, it feeds their own ego. They think, if they're struggling, then maybe I'm not so bad after all. It's honestly pretty pathetic when you think about it. But here's the thing, don't let it get to you. When you notice this kind of reaction from someone, it's actually a huge red flag. It shows you who they really are, and more importantly, it shows you who they're not. They're not your friend. They're not someone who's rooting for you. They're the type of person who will relish your downfall and cheer you on only when it serves their own needs. So, if you ever find yourself in a situation where someone seems to be more focused on your failures than your victories, take a step back. Recognize that their joy in your struggle says more about them than it does about you. And know that you deserve people who genuinely want to see you succeed, not people who secretly rejoice when you stumble. It's hard, but cutting those toxic people out of your life is one of the best things you can do for your mental health. I just wanted to share this because, honestly, it's something I've been noticing more lately, and it's messed up when you realize how people can pretend to care but really be enjoying your failures. Just stay true to yourself, keep your head up, and remember that your real friends will always be there to lift you up when you fall, not secretly cheer you on when you're down. Avoiding eye contact. When someone can't look you in the eyes because they're lying. Hey man, I've been thinking about something lately that I feel like we all need to be aware of. You know how sometimes, when you're having a conversation with someone, you get this feeling that something just doesn't add up? You ask them a simple question, and their answer sounds off. You start paying attention to their body language, and one thing stands out: they're not looking you in the eyes. Instead, they're avoiding eye contact. It might sound like a small thing, but trust me, it's a pretty big red flag, especially when it comes to detecting if someone is lying. Let me tell you why. Now, we both know that not everyone is super comfortable with direct eye contact. Some people are just shy, or maybe they're nervous, or maybe they just don't want to seem too intense. But there's a difference between being shy and being dishonest. When someone is avoiding looking you in the eyes during a conversation, especially when they're telling you something important, it can be a sign that they're hiding something or trying to cover up the truth. I mean, think about it. Eye contact is one of the most basic ways we connect with people. When we're speaking to someone, especially someone we trust, we naturally look at them in the eyes because it builds rapport. It shows that we're being genuine and that we have nothing to hide. But when someone starts avoiding your gaze, especially when you ask them something direct, it's like a subconscious clue that they're not being fully honest. Now, don't get me wrong. Not everyone who avoids eye contact is lying. Some people just aren't comfortable with it. Maybe they're anxious or just not the type to stare someone down. So, it's important not to jump to conclusions too quickly. But when you notice this pattern happening along with other signs, it's definitely worth taking a closer look. Let me tell you about a time I noticed this with someone. A while back, I had this friend who was always super open with me, always eye contact, always honest conversations. But one day, we were talking about something that seemed a little off. I asked them about something personal, and suddenly, they wouldn't look me in the eye. At first, I thought maybe they were just uncomfortable, but then it happened again the next time we spoke about something serious. I could tell they were avoiding looking me in the eyes, and it just didn't sit right. It wasn't like them at all. It made me start wondering if they were hiding something. And to be honest, that gut feeling ended up being right. Later on, they admitted to lying about something they'd been keeping from me. When they finally came clean, I realized how much their avoidance of eye contact had been a clue. It wasn't the only sign, of course, but it was definitely one of the first things I noticed. The thing is, when someone's lying, their body language usually betrays them. It's like their brain knows they're being dishonest, so their body reacts in subtle ways. Avoiding eye contact is one of those reactions. It's like their mind is telling them, don't look them in the eyes, because if you do, they might see right through you. This whole thing about avoiding eye contact doesn't always mean someone's trying to hide something big. Sometimes, it could just be that they're trying to buy time to come up with a better answer or cover up a little white lie. But when it's a consistent thing, and when it's combined with other signs like fidgeting, hesitation in their speech, or becoming defensive, that's when you should really start to pay attention. It's like a puzzle, and each little piece adds to the bigger picture. Here's something to think about. When people are telling the truth, they're usually more at ease. They don't feel the need to hide their eyes or look away because they know they're being honest. But when they're trying to cover something up, especially something significant, their body language starts to shift. The avoidance of eye contact is a natural reaction when someone feels like they're being caught in a lie. So, The next time you're in a conversation and you notice someone avoiding your gaze, especially if it's in a situation where the truth is important, take a moment to pause and think about it. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe they're just nervous or distracted. But if you've picked up on other signs that don't sit right, this could be a signal that they're not being fully open with you. I know it's not always easy to spot this stuff, especially with people you trust, but it's worth being aware of. If you notice that someone's eyes keep darting around the room or they can't seem to hold your gaze, that's something to think about. And if it's happening when you're asking about something that matters, you might want to dig a little deeper. But here's the key thing to remember: don't just rely on one sign to make a judgment. Eye contact is just one piece of the puzzle. The full picture involves paying attention to their words, tone, and other body language signals. If everything is pointing in the same direction, if the avoidance of eye contact is happening alongside other suspicious signs, then it's time to take a step back and really think about what's going on. At the end of the day, if you're dealing with someone who can't look you in the eyes when you need answers, it's a sign that something's off. And if it happens enough times, that's when you have to decide if you can trust them or if they're just putting up a facade to cover up the truth. I hope that helps explain the whole avoiding eye contact thing, man. It's a tricky one, but it's definitely something to keep an eye out for when you're trying to figure out whether someone's being truthful or not. Just trust your instincts, and if you start noticing it with someone regularly, it's time to start digging a little deeper. Too many details in the story, when liars overload you with information to make their lies sound believable. Hey man, I've got something I want to share with you about detecting lies. You know how sometimes you're talking to someone and they start telling you a story and it's like way too many details? It's like they're describing every little thing and it doesn't even make sense why they're telling you all of it. You ever notice that? And you're just sitting there thinking, why is this so detailed? Why do I need to know about the brand of their shoes or the exact color of the car that passed by? Here's the thing: when someone is lying, one of their go-to tricks is to load their story with extra details. They think that by giving you a ton of small, irrelevant facts, it'll make their story seem more believable. They're trying to make it sound like they were really there, really experienced what they're saying, and that's why they're adding all these facts. But honestly, it usually has the opposite effect. When someone's telling the truth, the details are usually natural. They tell the story as it comes to them, but they don't feel the need to over-explain everything. It's straightforward. But liars? They're terrified that you won't believe them. So they start throwing in every little thing they can remember, hoping that the more they add, the more convincing they'll sound. And honestly, it rarely works. I remember this one time, man. I was having this conversation with a guy I knew who was telling me about something that happened at work. It was a pretty big deal, and he was trying to explain how everything went down. The thing was, his story had so many details that didn't really matter. Like, he went on and on about the exact shade of blue the conference room walls were, or how the coffee machine broke just before the meeting started. It was all random stuff that didn't really have any relevance to what he was trying to explain. At first, I didn't think much of it. But then, the more he kept talking, the more I started to notice that these details were taking over the whole story. It was like he was trying to convince me of something by piling up the small stuff. And that's when I started to wonder, why is he putting so much effort into convincing me that this really happened? It made me suspicious, honestly. If it were true, wouldn't the story just flow naturally without all the extras? This is a common trick liars use. They think that by adding a ton of unnecessary details, it'll make their story seem more plausible. The truth though? It just makes things more complicated. It creates a version of events that's way too polished, too perfect, and too rehearsed. And that's usually a dead giveaway that they're trying to cover up the fact that they're not telling the truth. The funny thing is, the more details someone adds, the more your brain starts to analyze them. Your mind starts asking, why do I need to know that the car was red, that it had 2 people inside, and that it was driving on the left side of the street? Does any of that really matter? And the answer is usually, no, it doesn't matter. But the liar keeps piling on more because they're scared that you're not going to believe them without it. Let's be real. If you were telling a story about something important, you wouldn't need to mention every little thing that happened unless it was a crucial part of the story. You just share the key points, and that would be it. But when someone's lying, they'll start adding all sorts of irrelevant details to cover up the holes in their story. They're hoping that you'll get lost in the details and not focus on the bigger picture. And sometimes, when you point out something that doesn't add up or ask a follow-up question, the person will throw in even more details. It's like they're scrambling to make their lie sound more legit. They'll describe the weather, the music playing in the background, the mood of the room, anything they can think of to make the story seem more real. It's like they're creating an entire world for you to imagine, hoping that if they make it detailed enough, you'll stop questioning it. But here's the thing. When people are genuinely telling the truth, they don't feel the need to over-explain. They'll tell you the facts, and if you ask a follow-up question, they'll answer it naturally. It doesn't feel like a performance. It feels real. But when someone's lying, every question feels like an interrogation to them, so they start scrambling for details to make the story sound more convincing. I've seen it happen with friends before too. A friend will tell me something that sounds off, and the moment I ask for more details, they suddenly have every tiny thing figured out. It's almost like they've rehearsed their story and they're just waiting for someone to ask so they can deliver it with all the right facts. The truth is, liars are afraid. They're afraid that you won't believe them, and that fear makes them pile on details that don't matter. They think that if they make their story sound too believable, you'll trust them. But in reality, it only draws more attention to how fake their story is. It's like they're trying too hard, and that's what gives them away. So, next time someone starts giving you way too many unnecessary details in a story, pay attention. Don't let the extra information distract you from the fact that something about the story just doesn't feel right. Those random details are usually the liar's way of trying to convince you, but honestly, they usually just make the whole thing fall apart. It's funny because the more someone adds to their story, the more your instincts kick in and tell you to be suspicious. It's like they're trying to sell you on something that's not true, and the more they talk, the more you realize they're not being honest. So, yeah man, keep an eye out for this. The next time someone starts piling on all these little details that don't matter, take a step back and think about why they're doing it. It's usually a sign that they're trying to cover up something bigger. And if you trust your gut, you'll usually catch on before it's too late. I hope that helps, man. It's one of those sneaky things that liars do, and if you can spot it early, it can save you from a lot of frustration down the line. Just remember, the more details they throw at you, the more likely they're trying to cover up the truth. Keep an eye out for that and trust your instincts. Passive-aggressive comments, the hidden hatred behind the mask of compliments. My dear friend, I must share with you something that has often troubled me and, perhaps, has troubled you as well. It is a behavior that many people engage in without even realizing it, the passive-aggressive comment. It is a subtle art of speaking in a way that may sound polite on the surface but carries an underlying sting. One might say, "Oh, well done, at least you managed to do something," and on the surface, it might seem like praise. Yet, beneath those words lies something much darker. Let me explain. There are moments in life when we strive to achieve something, when we work diligently towards a goal, and when we finally succeed, we expect those around us to share in our joy. But there are those, often not as gracious as they should be, who mask their envy with phrases that sound kind, yet are laced with bitterness. They might congratulate you with a seemingly innocent remark, but in their words lies an implication of doubt, of belittling your achievement. I remember a time when I experienced this firsthand. I had worked for months on a project that meant a great deal to me, countless hours spent in focus and dedication. Finally, after much perseverance, the project was completed, and I was eager to share my success with those I considered dear. When I shared the news, there was one person who, with a smile that felt anything but genuine, simply said, "Well, at least you've done something right for once." At first, I thought I must have misheard. Perhaps, in my excitement, I was reading too deeply into their words. But as the conversation continued, I realized that the remark, however wrapped in a veneer of politeness, was not a true compliment. Instead, it was a backhanded comment that sought to diminish my accomplishment. There was no joy in their words, no true acknowledgement of my hard work. There was only a veiled criticism hidden beneath the guise of kindness. And this is what makes such passive-aggressive comments so insidious. They do not directly attack us, yet they leave us with a sense of discomfort, of unease. These comments are crafted to make us question ourselves, to feel as though we are not truly deserving of our success. It is as though the person making the comment is offering us a compliment while simultaneously reminding us that they feel threatened by our achievement. They may never say it outright, but their words convey something far more painful. It is, in fact, a form of envy, though a subtle one. Envy does not always manifest itself in loud accusations or overt jealousy. Sometimes it hides behind a smile, behind polite phrases that are meant to appear harmless but are, in truth, quite cutting. These comments are meant to make you feel small, to undermine your success without directly confronting it. They are a way of saying, "I am not happy for you, but I will not openly show it." It is a delicate form of manipulation, wrapped in the warmth of seemingly positive words. Now, I know that not every comment that sounds passive-aggressive is meant to cause harm. Sometimes, people simply do not know how to express themselves, and their words come out awkwardly. But when these comments become a pattern, when they are repeated often enough to leave a mark, that is when we must pay attention. For it is in these moments that we see the true nature of the individual who speaks them. If you ever encounter such comments, as I have, my dear friend, I ask that you not let them take root in your heart. Understand that these words are not a reflection of your worth or your achievements, but rather a reflection of the person who speaks them. They are often rooted in insecurity, in the fear that another's success will overshadow their own. They may be unaware of the hurt they cause, or they may be well aware but choose to speak in such a way because it allows them to hide their true feelings. It is important, then, to recognize these comments for what they are: veiled attempts to undermine your confidence and make you question the validity of your accomplishments. And when you see them for what they truly are, you can let them slide off your shoulders, for they have no power over you unless you allow them to. True friends, those who wish for your success and happiness, will not speak in such a manner. They will celebrate with you, not diminish your joy with words that carry hidden disdain. If ever you find yourself on the receiving end of such passive-aggressive remarks, I urge you, my dear friend, to hold your head high and remember that you are worthy of every accomplishment you achieve. The envy of others, if it exists, is not your burden to carry. You have done well in all that you have set your heart to, and no comment, no matter how cleverly disguised, can take that truth from you. Keep your spirit strong and your heart open, for those who truly care for you will lift you up, not tear you down with veiled words. I hope that you can recognize these passive-aggressive comments for what they truly are, my friend. It is a subtle, yet deeply hurtful, form of envy, and it is important to rise above it. Your success is yours to cherish, and no one has the right to diminish it, no matter how softly their words may sound. The inconsistency of behavior. When someone is friendly one day, cold the next. My dear friend, I have come to realize that one of the more perplexing signs of a person's internal conflict, or perhaps even jealousy, can manifest in their behavior towards us. It is the inconsistency, the sudden shifts between warmth and coldness, friendliness and distance. You may have encountered this yourself. Someone you thought you had a good connection with, someone who treated you with kindness one day, suddenly becomes distant, aloof, or even cold the next, without any clear reason. These fluctuations in behavior, though seemingly harmless, often carry much deeper meanings than we might first assume. It is not uncommon for such behavior to be rooted in feelings of envy or internal strife. The truth is, when someone's actions towards you shift so dramatically, it is likely that there is something more than meets the eye. The question we must ask ourselves is, what is causing this sudden change? I've had the unfortunate experience of witnessing such behavior on more than one occasion. There was a colleague of mine, someone I thought of as a good acquaintance. For a while, we had shared pleasant conversations, exchanged friendly gestures, and enjoyed a respectful camaraderie. But then, out of nowhere, the warmth I had come to expect from him began to evaporate. One day, I would receive a warm smile and a friendly hello, and the next, I would be met with silence, as if I had done something to offend him, though I had done nothing at all. No explanation, no apology. Simply a cold shoulder. At first, I was confused. I could not understand what had changed. Had I unknowingly said something wrong? Had I made a misstep in our interaction? But the more I thought about it, the more I began to recognize a pattern. It was not just a one-time occurrence, it happened repeatedly. There were days when this person would engage with me with a level of enthusiasm that seemed almost exaggerated, and then the very next day, I would feel as though I had been shut out entirely. It was as if I were being subjected to the whims of their mood, with no clear cause for the shift. It was during this time that I began to notice a deeper pattern. When someone is constantly shifting between friendliness and coldness, especially without any clear external triggers, it often suggests something more than just a bad mood or an off day. It can indicate an internal conflict. In many cases, this conflict stems from feelings of jealousy or insecurity. The warmth they offer you one day may be genuine, yet the coldness that follows can be a reflection of the resentment they feel toward your success, your achievements, or even your personality. You see, when someone feels envious of you, they may struggle internally with their emotions. They might want to be happy for you, to share in your joy, but something inside of them holds them back. This inner turmoil often results in erratic behavior. One moment, they may express support, but the next, they may withdraw, retreating into a space of coldness and distance as a way to protect themselves from the discomfort of their own jealousy. It is not always intentional, but rather a result of their own emotional conflict. It is a challenging thing to witness, my friend, because you may find yourself wondering whether you have done something wrong, questioning your own actions. But I urge you not to blame yourself for these fluctuations in behavior. They are not a reflection of your actions, but rather a reflection of the person who is struggling internally with their own feelings. Sometimes, the more someone envies you, the more they will oscillate between warmth and coldness. They may not even understand the source of their own behavior. One could even say that this inconsistency is a defense mechanism. When someone is faced with the discomfort of their own envy, they may attempt to suppress those feelings by distancing themselves from you. By pulling away, they can momentarily ease the tension they feel, convincing themselves that they are unaffected by your successes or by the connection they have with you. But in truth, it is a coping mechanism, one that comes at the cost of the authenticity of their relationship with you. As difficult as this may be to accept, it is important to recognize the signs of such behavior and understand its origins. If you encounter someone who shifts unpredictably between friendliness and coldness, it may be a sign that their inner feelings of envy or conflict are taking their toll. And while this may be painful to experience, it is not a reflection of your worth or the strength of your accomplishments. Rather, it is a reflection of the inner battles they are facing. My dear friend, I know that you deserve honesty and consistency in the relationships you build. You deserve people who are not afraid to embrace their feelings openly, who do not hide behind masks of friendliness one day and coldness the next. If you find yourself surrounded by those whose behavior fluctuates so erratically, it may be time to take a step back and reflect on what this inconsistency truly means. If it is indeed envy that is driving their behavior, I encourage you to be patient, yet protective of your own heart. It is not your responsibility to resolve their inner conflict, nor is it your burden to carry. You cannot change the way someone else feels, but you can choose how much of their inconsistent behavior you allow into your life. True relationships, those built on respect, admiration, and trust, will not leave you questioning where you stand. They will be consistent, grounded in mutual understanding and support. If someone's actions leave you constantly in doubt, wondering if you have done something wrong, it may be a sign that their relationship with you is not as solid as it should be. And while it is painful to acknowledge, it is better to recognize this sooner rather than later, so that you can protect yourself from the emotional roller coaster that such inconsistency can bring. I hope, my friend, that this reflection helps you to navigate the complexities of inconsistent behavior in others. Remember, you are worthy of relationships that bring you peace and certainty, not emotional confusion. Stay true to yourself, and do not let the shifting tides of someone else's feelings cause you to doubt your own worth. The false interest, when someone pretends to care but doesn't really. My dear friend, have you ever found yourself in a conversation with someone who seems to be listening, nodding along as if they are interested in every word you say, but you can tell deep down that their heart isn't in it? They might even ask questions, but there's a certain emptiness in their voice, a coldness in their eyes that betrays their true feelings. This is what we call false interest, When someone pretends to be engaged in your success or your thoughts, but in reality, their attention is more about keeping you on the hooks rather than celebrating with you. Let me explain it more clearly. There have been times in my life when I've shared my excitement, my progress, or my achievements with others, only to realize later that the enthusiasm I thought I saw reflected in their eyes was nothing more than a mask. These people would ask me questions about my success, nodding in what seemed like encouragement, but if I paid closer attention, I could tell that their minds weren't truly present. Their responses would be formal and robotic, almost as if they were following a script. They'd say things like, "That's great, good for you," but there was no real warmth, no true joy in their words. I can remember one instance when I had been working on something important for months. It was a project that meant a lot to me, and when I finally achieved the results I had been striving for, I wanted to share my excitement with those around me. I expected to hear words of congratulations, to feel the support of my peers. But when I spoke to one particular individual, someone I had considered a close acquaintance, their response was lukewarm, to say the least. They offered the usual pleasantries, asking how things were going and what the next steps were, but their tone was flat. Their gaze kept wandering off, and there was a certain detachment in the way they interacted with me. I couldn't help but notice the difference in how they responded to my achievement compared to how they would react if someone else were to share something similar. It was as though they were going through the motions of being supportive, but in reality, they didn't truly care about my success. The emptiness in their eyes and the mechanical nature of their responses made it clear that their interest wasn't genuine. They weren't celebrating with me, but instead, they were simply trying to keep the conversation going, perhaps out of a sense of obligation or, more likely, a desire to maintain control of the interaction. This, my friend, is a key sign of false interest. It's a behavior often driven by envy. When someone is envious of your success, they don't want to fully engage with your joy because they cannot genuinely share in it. Instead, they pretend to be interested because it serves their own need to keep you on the hook. They want to maintain the appearance of being supportive, of being involved in your life, but the reality is far different. They don't truly care. They are not genuinely happy for you. The reason for this behavior is simple. Envy often prevents people from fully celebrating another person's success. A truly happy individual, one who has no hidden agenda, will listen with genuine interest, will smile with sincerity, and will share in your joy. But someone who is envious will find it difficult to be present in the moment. Their mind will wander, their attention will drift, and their words will lack substance. This is because they are too busy comparing themselves to you, too consumed with their own feelings of inadequacy, to truly appreciate your success. This kind of false interest is dangerous, my dear friend, because it can leave you feeling isolated and misunderstood. You share your deepest feelings, your greatest triumphs, with someone who is only pretending to care, and in return, you receive nothing but emptiness. Their response doesn't lift you up, it leaves you questioning whether your achievement really matters at all. But in reality, their lack of genuine interest has nothing to do with the value of your success and everything to do with their own inability to celebrate it. You see, when someone is envious of you, they may not want to outright show their resentment. Instead, they maintain a facade of politeness and interest, all while hiding their true feelings beneath the surface. They want to stay close enough to monitor your progress, but not so close as to truly support you. They may even use your success as a way to fuel their own insecurities, keeping you in their orbit so that they can feel better about themselves by comparison. I have learned over time, my friend, that it is important to recognize these signs early on. When you feel that someone's interest is not genuine, when their enthusiasm feels forced or insincere, it is important to trust your instincts. Don't let their false interest make you doubt the importance of your own achievements. You deserve to be surrounded by people who truly care, who genuinely celebrate with you and are not simply pretending to be interested for their own selfish reasons. True friends, my dear friend, will not only listen to your successes but will also rejoice in them. They will ask questions with the intention of learning more, of understanding your journey, and they will respond with authentic excitement because they are happy to see you thrive. They will not pretend to care out of obligation or hidden resentment. They will be with you, in both words and actions, in the highest moments of your life, and that is the type of connection you deserve. I hope that this helps you, my dear friend, to better understand the subtle ways in which envy can manifest. The next time you encounter someone who seems to be offering false interest, I encourage you to pay attention to the signs. Their lack of genuine engagement may hurt, but remember, it is not a reflection of your worth or your accomplishments. It is simply a reflection of their inability to genuinely celebrate with you because of their own inner struggles. Stay true to yourself and surround yourself with those who genuinely care. The blame game, when someone constantly shifts responsibility to others. My dear friend, have you ever had a conversation with someone who always seems to be shifting the blame onto others, no matter the situation? You might have noticed how, no matter how clear the facts are, they will insist that someone else is at fault. It's a tactic that's commonly used by people who are trying to cover up their own mistakes, particularly those who are not comfortable taking responsibility for their actions. It's called blame shifting, and it's a clear sign that something is not quite right. I've had my share of experiences where I've witnessed this behavior up close. There was one particular situation that comes to mind, a project at work, one that had fallen apart due to poor communication and missed deadlines. I had been part of the team working on it, and as the issues piled up, it was clear that the person leading the project had dropped the ball. Instead of owning up to their role in the project's failure, they immediately began pointing fingers at the rest of the team. It wasn't their fault, they said. It was someone else's. They blamed the logistics team for not delivering on time, the marketing team for not supporting their efforts, and even blamed me for not providing the right information at the right time. At first, I thought I might have missed something. Perhaps I hadn't been as clear in my communication or hadn't done something the right way. But as the conversation went on, it became increasingly apparent that this individual was avoiding any responsibility for the mess they had created. They were quick to deflect, eager to point out anyone but themselves. And all the while, the facts were clear. It was their poor planning, their lack of foresight, and their failure to manage the team that had led to the project's downfall. This, my friend, is a classic case of blame shifting, a defense mechanism often used by those who cannot or will not own up to their mistakes. Instead of facing the consequences of their actions, they project their failures onto others in an attempt to avoid feeling the weight of their own guilt or responsibility. The truth is, it's much easier to blame someone else than to admit to your own shortcomings. And when someone does this consistently, it's a sign that they are trying to cover up their own wrongdoings. Now, it's important to remember that none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, and we all have moments where we fall short. But there is a difference between taking responsibility for those mistakes and constantly trying to shift the blame. People who are willing to take accountability for their actions are often the ones who learn and grow from their experiences. On the other hand, those who constantly avoid responsibility and blame others are often doing so out of fear. Fear of judgment, fear of loss of status, or fear of being seen as less than perfect. This behavior is not limited to just work situations. I've seen it in personal relationships as well. Perhaps someone close to you constantly blames their partner, their friends, or even their family for things that go wrong in their life. They might say, "I would have done better if they had supported me," or "if they hadn't acted that way, everything would have been fine." But when you look at the bigger picture, you realize that their inability to take responsibility for their own choices is what's really holding them back. It's easier for them to blame external factors than to confront the uncomfortable truth that they may have made some poor decisions along the way. In some ways, this constant shifting of blame is a form of emotional manipulation. By making others believe that they are at fault, the person avoids the consequences of their own actions and even seeks to maintain a sense of control or superiority. It's as if they are trying to make you feel guilty, making you think that the problem lies with you, not them. And the more they do it, the more you begin to question your own role in the situation, even if you know deep down that you are not responsible for what happened. It's crucial, my friend, to recognize this behavior when it happens. It's easy to get caught up in the emotions of a situation, especially when someone is insisting that you are to blame. But it's important to step back and look at the facts. If the evidence points to them, and they are the ones who are consistently avoiding responsibility, then you have to trust your judgment. You cannot let someone manipulate you into taking the fall for something that isn't your fault. Blame shifting is also an indication of deeper issues within a person's character. When someone cannot take responsibility for their actions, it often means that they lack the self-awareness or maturity to reflect on their behavior. It's a defense mechanism rooted in insecurity. Rather than face their own flaws, they project them onto others, deflecting attention away from their own shortcomings. I have also come to realize, my friend, that people who shift blame onto others often have a difficult time building meaningful, long-lasting relationships. They may seem charming or convincing at first, but over time, their inability to take responsibility for their mistakes erodes trust. Relationships, whether personal or professional, are built on trust and mutual respect. When someone constantly avoids taking responsibility, it undermines the foundation of that trust, and eventually, people start to see them for who they really are, a person who cannot be relied upon to own up to their actions. In the end, it's important to remember that we all make mistakes. And while it's natural to want to protect ourselves from the consequences of those mistakes, we must also be willing to acknowledge them, learn from them, and grow. This is what separates those who are emotionally mature and self-aware from those who are not. By recognizing when someone is constantly shifting the blame, you can protect yourself from falling into their trap and avoid being manipulated by their false narrative. I hope, my dear friend, that this reflection helps you to better understand the pattern of blame shifting and how it can be a sign of deeper issues. You are worthy of relationships that are grounded in accountability and honesty. Surround yourself with people who are willing to own up to their mistakes and learn from them, because that is how true growth happens. And remember, you cannot change others, but you can choose the company you keep. Stay true to yourself, and don't let anyone shift the blame onto you when the facts clearly point elsewhere. Exaggerated emotions. When someone uses over-the-top feelings to hide the truth. My dear friend, have you ever been in a conversation where someone suddenly becomes overly emotional, reacting with intense feelings to something that doesn't seem to warrant such an extreme response? At first, you might feel sympathy for them, wondering why they're so upset. But as the conversation goes on, something doesn't quite add up. Their emotions seem out of proportion to the situation, and you start to wonder if there's something more behind their display. This is a common tactic used by people who are trying to hide the truth: exaggerated emotions. I've had experiences where I was on the receiving end of this kind of emotional manipulation, and I want to share with you what I've learned from those moments. There was one particular instance with someone who was incredibly defensive, becoming almost tearfully upset over something that didn't seem to be a big deal. I was trying to discuss a situation with them, one that involved a misunderstanding we had, and instead of addressing the issue directly, they started crying. Their voice quivered with emotion, and they became so upset that it made it difficult for me to continue the conversation. Now, let me be clear, I'm not saying that people shouldn't express their emotions. Everyone has the right to feel what they feel, and emotions are a natural part of being human. But in this case, their reaction was disproportionate, and it made me feel like I was walking on eggshells, unsure of how to respond. It was almost as if their emotions were being used as a shield to prevent me from addressing the real issue at hand. The more I tried to speak calmly and logically, the more they ramped up their emotional display. It became clear to me that they were trying to avoid taking responsibility for their actions by distracting me with this emotional outburst. This, my friend, is exactly what exaggerated emotions can do. When someone feels cornered, when they know they can't defend themselves with facts or logic, they might resort to this tactic to throw you off balance. It's a diversion, a way of manipulating the conversation and clouding the truth. By becoming overly emotional, they hope that you'll become so focused on their feelings that you'll forget about the issue at hand, or worse yet, feel guilty for even bringing it up. One of the most common scenarios where I've seen this behavior is in situations involving guilt or dishonesty. If someone is caught in a lie or a mistake, and they know they can't explain themselves convincingly, they may try to overwhelm you with emotion to distract you. Suddenly, they're angry, or they're crying, or they're shouting, whatever it takes to shift the focus away from the truth. They know that emotions can create a powerful effect, making you feel uncomfortable or even responsible for their distress. And the more emotional they get, the less you focus on the real issue, which is exactly what they want. This tactic, my friend, is often used by people who have something to hide. Instead of addressing the facts, instead of taking responsibility for their actions, they create a storm of emotions to muddy the waters. And the more emotional the response, the harder it becomes to stay focused on the truth. You start questioning your own feelings, wondering if you're being too harsh or insensitive. The exaggerated emotions create doubt in your mind, and that's exactly what the person wants. I've also noticed that people who engage in this kind of emotional manipulation often do so because they are afraid of being exposed. They know that once the truth comes to light, it will be difficult for them to maintain their position, so they create a diversion to protect themselves. They might even use their emotions to manipulate you into feeling sorry for them or into feeling that you need to take care of them. It's a way of gaining control over the situation, all while hiding the truth behind a wall of exaggerated feelings. In another instance, I had a close friend who would always react with intense emotion whenever we tried to confront them about something. If we brought up an issue, they would either become defensively angry or fall into a dramatic, tearful state. It didn't matter what the topic was, whether it was a small disagreement or something more serious, they always found a way to turn the conversation into an emotional spectacle. And over time, I realized that this wasn't just a case of them being overly sensitive. It was a calculated attempt to avoid the difficult conversations and to keep me from pressing too hard on the issue. This behavior is a way of shifting the focus from what really matters to the emotional fallout of the conversation. And the more often it happens, the more you start to question whether it's worth addressing the issues at all. You begin to feel like you're walking into a minefield, never knowing when their emotional reaction will explode. This constant emotional volatility can leave you feeling drained and uncertain about how to approach the relationship or situation. It's important, my dear friend, to recognize when exaggerated emotions are being used as a smokescreen. When you feel that someone's emotional reaction doesn't match the situation, when it seems like they are using their feelings to manipulate the outcome, it's time to step back and refocus on the facts. Don't let yourself be swayed by someone else's emotional outbursts if you know in your heart that they are not addressing the real issue. Emotions are valid, but they should never be used as a tool to hide the truth or deflect accountability. I've learned over time that it's best to approach situations like this with a calm and steady demeanor. When someone tries to drown you in their emotions, the best thing you can do is stay grounded, stay focused on the issue, and not get swept up in the emotional tide. It's easy to feel sympathy or guilt when someone is crying or angry, but remember, you are not responsible for their emotions. You are responsible for how you react to the situation, and the truth deserves to be heard. My dear friend, I hope this reflection helps you recognize the signs of exaggerated emotions and how they can be used to divert attention from the real issues. Trust yourself and your ability to see through the emotional fog. And remember, emotions are an essential part of life, but they should never be used as a weapon to obscure the truth. Stay grounded, stay true to what you know, and don't allow anyone to manipulate you with exaggerated emotional reactions. You deserve honesty, and you deserve the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be for others to face. Support only in hard times, when someone shows interest in your struggles, but not in your success. My dear friend, have you ever noticed how some people seem to appear only when you're going through a tough time? They offer their support, listen to your struggles, and seem to be genuinely concerned about your well-being. But when things start looking up for you, when you've overcome your challenges and you're in a good place, they suddenly become distant, cold, or even disappear altogether. This, my friend, is a classic behavior of someone who is driven by envy or a hidden agenda. They are only interested in your difficulties because, in those moments, they feel better about themselves. I've had this happen to me, and I'm sure you've had your own experiences. There's a particular time in my life that comes to mind, when I was going through a rough patch, facing a series of personal challenges. It was a period filled with uncertainty, and I felt vulnerable. During that time, a person I considered a close friend reached out to me. They seemed genuinely concerned and offered their support. We had long conversations about my struggles, and they were always there, listening patiently, providing advice, and giving me a sense of comfort. It felt like they truly cared about me and my well-being. I was grateful for their presence, especially when everything seemed so uncertain. However, as soon as things started to improve for me, as I began to regain my confidence and overcome the difficulties I had been facing, I noticed a shift in their behavior. The phone calls became less frequent. the messages less engaging. When I would try to share positive news or achievements, their responses were short, cold, and somewhat dismissive. At first, I didn't think much of it. I was still processing the changes in my life, and maybe they were just busy. But over time, it became clear. When I was struggling, I had their full attention. But when I was doing well, it was as though I no longer existed to them. This, my friend, is a classic sign of someone who thrives on your misfortune. They derive a sense of satisfaction or comfort from your struggles because, in those moments, they can feel superior to you. When you're going through a hard time, they can position themselves as the one offering support, the one who is better off in comparison. They feel validated by your difficulties because it provides them with a sense of control or dominance in the relationship. But as soon as you begin to succeed or find happiness, they no longer have the same interest in you. In fact, they may even feel threatened by your success. This behavior can be hard to spot at first because, in those difficult moments, their support might feel genuine. But over time, you begin to notice the pattern. They are there when you're at your lowest, but they vanish or become distant when you start to rise. It's as though your success makes them uncomfortable, or worse, it makes them feel insignificant. They cannot stand to see you thrive because it forces them to confront their own insecurities or jealousy. It's important to understand, my dear friend, that this type of behavior is rooted in envy. A person who genuinely cares about you will support you through both the highs and the lows of life. They will celebrate your successes and stand by your side during your struggles. But someone who is driven by envy sees your success as a threat, and they only want to be around when they can feel better about themselves at your expense. I've come to realize that people like this often struggle with their own sense of self-worth. They rely on others' misfortune to feel good about themselves, and when others are doing well, it shines a light on their own insecurities. It's a sad reality, but it's one that I've witnessed in various relationships. They need to feel needed, and they need to feel superior, even if it means manipulating or diminishing someone else's joy. One of the most painful aspects of this dynamic is that it's often hard to confront. When you're going through a tough time, their support feels like a lifeline. You may not realize that it's conditional, that it's tied to your struggle, not your growth. And when the situation changes, when things improve, you might feel confused or hurt by their sudden coldness. But over time, you'll begin to see the pattern, and you'll realize that this behavior has less to do with you and more to do with their own issues. I've learned to be cautious of people who only seem to be around when things aren't going well for me. Their support may seem kind on the surface, but it's actually self-serving. They want to feel needed, but they don't want to see you succeed. And while it can be difficult to accept, it's important to recognize that their behavior is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their own insecurities and envy. In the end, true friends are those who are by your side through both the challenges and the triumphs. They celebrate your victories without hesitation and stand with you through the hard times. They don't see your success as a threat but as something to be proud of. And when you start to recognize the difference between genuine support and conditional sympathy, you'll be able to protect yourself from the hurt that comes with relationships rooted in envy. My dear friend, I hope this reflection helps you understand the dynamics of support that only exists during your hard times. True friendship is not about finding comfort in someone else's pain but in sharing joy and success together. Don't let those who are only around when things are difficult cloud your judgment. You deserve friends who are there for you at all times, not just when they can feel better about themselves by offering you their support. Stay true to those who genuinely care about you through thick and thin. Intuition, trusting your inner feelings when something doesn't feel right. My dear friend, there is one thing I've come to realize more than anything else in my life, and I want to share it with you. You know more than you think you do. Often, we dismiss that gut feeling, that little voice inside our heads that tells us something is off. We ignore it, thinking it's just paranoia or overthinking. But let me tell you, that feeling, that intuitive nudge, is often your subconscious picking up on things you might not be fully aware of at the moment. It's a gift, and it's something you should start trusting more. I know it might sound a bit abstract, but think about those times when you felt that something was wrong, but couldn't quite put your finger on it. You might have been talking to someone, and even though everything seemed fine on the surface, you couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Maybe their smile didn't reach their eyes, Or maybe their words didn't match their tone. Or perhaps you noticed a shift in their behavior, something that felt like a small red flag. Deep down, you knew something wasn't right, but you ignored it, convincing yourself it was nothing. I've had moments like that, and I'm sure you have too. There was a particular time when I was in a situation with a person who, on the surface, seemed like a friend. They were always around when I was facing difficulties, offering their support and advice. But there was always this feeling I couldn't shake. Something about their presence didn't sit right with me, even though they appeared to care. I couldn't explain it at the time, but I felt like they were only interested in my struggles, not my successes. And as much as I tried to dismiss it, that gut feeling kept growing stronger. Eventually, I discovered that they had been secretly envious of me and even undermining my efforts behind my back. Looking back, I now realize that I had ignored my intuition for far too long. Deep down, I felt something was off, but I chose to ignore it because I wanted to believe the best in that person. I didn't trust myself, and that's something I regret. My intuition had been warning me, but I silenced it because I didn't want to believe the truth. This is why, my dear friend, you must learn to trust your intuition. It's not just a vague feeling. It's your mind and body picking up on subtle cues and information that your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. Our intuition is like a radar, constantly scanning the environment for inconsistencies or potential dangers, even when we're not fully aware of them. It's a skill that everyone has, but many of us ignore it because we don't want to face the discomfort of being right when we sense that something is wrong. Think about how your body reacts when something doesn't feel right. Maybe your heart rate increases, or you feel a tightness in your chest. Perhaps your stomach feels uneasy, or your mind starts racing with thoughts that don't make sense. These physical sensations are often signs that your intuition is picking up on something. It's your body's way of telling you, hey, pay attention here. Something's not adding up. I know that trusting your intuition can be difficult, especially if you've been taught to question yourself or doubt your instincts. But remember, your inner wisdom is more accurate than you might think. How many times have you ignored that little voice, only to regret it later? How many times have you felt a sense of discomfort in a situation, only for that discomfort to be validated later by someone else's actions or by the truth coming to light? That is your intuition at work. Sometimes, we choose to ignore our gut feelings because we don't want to confront the reality that something might be wrong. We want to believe that people have good intentions, that everything is fine. But by doing so, we are ignoring the very thing that could protect us. Your intuition is not just a feeling. It's a signal that you need to listen to. It's your personal guide, helping you navigate through relationships, decisions, and situations. And when it comes to matters of trust, especially with people who may not have your best interests at heart, your intuition is one of your most valuable allies. It's not always easy, I know. We all want to believe in the best of others, and we don't want to feel paranoid or overly cautious. But I've learned the hard way that ignoring my intuition only leads to disappointment and regret. Every time I've trusted my gut, it's led me to make better choices and avoid toxic situations. And every time I've ignored it, I've ended up paying the price. So, my dear friend, I encourage you to start listening to your inner voice more often. When you feel that something is off, don't dismiss it. Trust yourself. Don't let your mind talk you out of what your body is trying to tell you. You are smarter and more intuitive than you think. You can sense when something doesn't feel right, and that's a gift you should honor. The truth is, your intuition is one of the most powerful tools you have when it comes to protecting yourself from deceit or betrayal. It helps you see through the smoke and mirrors that people may put up. And while no one is perfect, and we can all make mistakes in judgment, learning to trust your instincts will guide you in the right direction and help you avoid unnecessary harm. My dear friend, always remember, trust yourself. When something doesn't feel right, listen to that inner voice. Don't let fear or doubt cloud your judgment. Your intuition is there to protect you, and you are capable of navigating through life with wisdom and clarity if you learn to embrace it. You know more than you think, and you deserve to trust that inner wisdom with all your heart. Conclusion. My dear friend, before we wrap up everything we've discussed, I want you to remember something important. These signs don't always mean that the person in front of you is envious or a liar. People can behave this way for many reasons, and it's not always with bad intentions. However, if you notice several of these signs in someone's behavior, it's a signal to be cautious. It doesn't necessarily mean you should make a final judgment, but it's worth paying attention to. It's important to look at the big picture. You shouldn't judge someone based on one action or phrase. We all make mistakes, and sometimes our actions don't align with our intentions. Maybe someone is acting strange because they're going through something difficult themselves or simply don't know how to express their support. It's okay, we're all human, and sometimes what we do doesn't reflect what we truly mean. But at the same time, don't ignore the obvious. If you feel that something is off, if your intuition tells you that someone isn't being sincere or might be manipulating your feelings, that's a signal to be cautious. You deserve to surround yourself with people who support you, celebrate your successes, and are there for you in tough times, not just when your problems make them feel better about themselves. Remember, you are better than you think, and your feelings and intuition deserve to be respected. No one should make you feel bad because of their own ill intentions, and you have every right to trust yourself. Life is not just about what happens to us, but also how we perceive what's happening around us. Be observant, but don't forget to give people a chance. True friends are the ones who accept you, support you, and rejoice in your success just as you do for them. And if that's not happening, know that you have the ability to recognize it and make the right choices for yourself. You deserve the best, my friend. You matter. Your feelings matter. If you found something useful here, please give it a like and share in the comments how you recognize lies and envy. You can do it, and everything will work out for you. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next videos.